Chapter 1, 1959, age 10. Songs in the top 40 included Venus, Lonely Boy, Poor Little Fool, Mac the Knife, Dream Lover, and Only 16. Annette Funicello, who used to be on the Mickey Mouse Club, then went out on her own as a singer, was her best friend. Shelley February, who played Mary, the daughter on the Donna Reed show, was her second best friend. The three of them were all but inseparable when they were in California at the same time, though that happened rarely. Frankie Avalon and Fabian were the men she was closest to, because Bob Martucci and Pete DeAngelis managed all three of them. She and Frankie had more or less dated at times. Faye was really too young for her. But Bobbie Rydell was the man she dated mostly, when their schedule permitted it. Then there was Paul Anka, who mostly dated Annette. Her parents' living room, dining room combination was maybe 50 feet wide by 20 feet long, not a bad shape for pacing. She had to pace to keep her showbiz friends with her. Otherwise, they left the way real kids did, and she was alone again. She paced counterclockwise, a big circle in front of the sofa and behind the coffee table, around the dining room table, past the kitchen door, and back again. Every so often, she briefly reversed the circle so as not to get dizzy. The dachshund entered after the first 10 minutes or so and crouched underneath the dining room table where he wouldn't get stepped on. His body stretched out long, neck and chin on the floor, eyes wide open, watching, his left ear tossed back over his head and inside out in a gesture of I don't care. She was the one who didn't care. Sometimes her father pointed to the dog and told her the dog was confused, that she was making the dog crazy and he was going to turn vicious on account of her. This could go on for hours. She could wear out a track on the carpet as her father accused her of doing. Her body rocked slightly. Pacing helped her focus. Annette Funicello and Shelley February both lived with their parents. She envied them because their parents went along with their careers and encouraged them. She thought it was funny when she stopped to think about it, that Bobbie, Paul, Frankie, even Faye, all the boys had moved out on their own, just as she had. Her managers, Bob Martucci and Pete DeAngelis, especially Bob, were like substitute parents. She sometimes dared them by purposely acting up, and Bob sometimes had to take a firm hand with her. She pretended to be how old? 16, sometimes 17, sometimes 18 or 19, depending. Just so long as she was over 10, past this awful time she was going through now. It was good having Faye and Frankie going along the same scenes with Bob and Pete. They were like her brothers and consoled her. Take last night, for instance. She had a TV show to do next weekend, and Bob told her to go home and get to bed early. Then Bobbie called, and she went out with him. Usually no one found out, but people were starting to know her around town. Dick Clark was supposed to be her friend, ran into them, and might well have told on her. She woke up scared that morning. She called Frankie and asked him if he'd drive into the office with her, just in case. It wasn't all that unusual. It was expensive to park downtown, and they frequently drove in together. Bobbie's in town, by the way. She strained to make her voice sound casual. At times like that, all the acting lessons in the world didn't seem to help much. He came over last night, and we went out for a while, did the gallery tour. Thought Bob told you to get to bed early. Yeah, well, oh Christ, Frankie was slipping into his big brother know-it-all role again, all of 21, the hotshot. Look, he said, you know you have to look good for the show. It's stupid to overdo things. Silence. Frankie looked straight ahead at the traffic. 2 full stoplights before he turned to her. Dick won't tell, he said with that smile she loved so much. Now he knew why she had called him this morning. His whole scolding game was just something to pass the time in traffic. And anyway, it turned out Bob doesn't know this time. Her father tiptoed into the kitchen for a glass of milk. She could feel him staring at her. He was as sad and confused as the dachshund was. But with his bushy black mustache too large for his small face, he looked more like a chipmunk. He was nearing 60, exhausted from a 12-hour day at work, too old for children. His thick, black-framed reading glasses were pushed up on his forehead, as if he didn't have the energy to take them off completely. His feet were popping out of his backless slippers. Not now, please not now. They were all in Bob's office, joking, really being friends, carefree. She was almost tempted to confess she went out last night. Bob knew in the end the kids needed their fun, needed to be somewhat reckless. That was why she loved him. Then the blow came. The news is almost on, her father said. Silence. They're broadcasting parts of Castro's speech today. You ought to hear it. You ought to find out what's happening in the world. You might realize there are people with larger problems than you have. Real problems, not imaginary ones. She reversed the circle to avoid walking past him. He stood there fidgeting, his eyes blinking from the strain of watching her. A louder silence. He walked quietly back to the den, turned the television up a little louder so he wouldn't have to think about her. Either that, or he was getting hard of hearing, but he would never admit that. She slowed down her pace. Her thoughts were starting to wander. What would it have been like if she really had brothers and sisters, a real family? Maybe she wouldn't have needed to pace. Had real friends, at least. The sort of thought that led nowhere and broke into the fantasy. It was her father's fault. Damn him. She stooped to fix the dog's ear and felt his body tighten up, his long backbone coiling away from her ever so slightly. He couldn't make up his mind. She petted him, spoke softly, took some sleeping pills, 2 Tylenol and a couple of Valium, and went to her room and closed the door. Peace and quiet.